Welcome to a close friend of ESPC and the European community, Caruana Gatimu, lead of the customer advocacy group Microsoft Teams Engineering, to talk to us today on the phenomenon that is Microsoft Teams.
We all know that the world has changed. The world has been struck by this global pandemic, and never before have we seen the need to work together. Our need to collaborate, to build on the ideas of others, to really come through this time so that we can respond, rebuild, react, and reimagine our world together is of the utmost importance. It's a great privilege for us at Microsoft to serve all of you during this time. And a huge thank you to all of you who have been using Microsoft Teams in your businesses and some of you in your personal lives as you've been navigating this space. So, with our work together, we can get through this. And I really love this quote from Satya. I wanted to include it today from his book, Hit Refresh, because we have gone through a large cultural transformation inside of Microsoft, and I'm so grateful that we were down that path before we had to deal with the global pandemic and many of the other things that, at least in the United States, have been happening. And so it really gave us a place of strength. And that's why your team culture, the health and wellness of your employees, and really investing in that is extremely important during this time. You might think you're too busy for it, but if you join Heather Newman and I later today for our talk on diversity, really break down the business reasons why focusing on collaboration, being inclusive, and coming from a place of supporting diversity is really critical at this time. Why do we aspire to even try to do teamwork at all? A good is because we all need human connection. I think that's been made really obvious during this time when many of us are working from home. And I love what a friend of mine says. He says, "You're not working from home. You're trying to work during a pandemic, and you happen to be in your house." And it's not the same as the Fridays I used to spend at home. I'm coming to you here from my home, as I said, in outside of Seattle, Washington, and I have been working from here exclusively since early March, the beginning of March. For the first time, just recently on September 22nd, I went to campus, and it was quite an experience to actually be back with people. We also need personal growth. It's through the teams that I work on and the people that I work with that I continue to grow and learn. And being able gives us a sense of fulfillment and meaning that is not connected to the amount of compensation that we get or our titles or any of those other kind of worldly things that are important, but won't necessarily keep us going during times of difficulty and change. We have more impact when we work together. There's lots of great sayings about that, but I know this to be true, and I hope that you do as well, based on your recent experiences and probably throughout your career. It really takes a team to drive impact at the highest level. Because of all these things and the learning that we've been doing at Microsoft through research, through our own practical experience, and from our own experiences within the company, we're evolving our approach to driving adoption. We're taking what we're calling the humans first approach. You hopefully, for any of you who visited Microsoft Ignite, you heard Satya's keynote, or Jared, or Jeff's, and throughout all of them, but especially in Satya's keynote, which is still available online, he really talked about the importance of employee wellness. We're building an integration with a gentleman who runs a company called Headspace, which is a mindfulness app. And it's going to help us with that integration in Teams, build in those moments of mental recovery. Focusing on employee health and wellness is a productivity tool, because if you're always focused on the output of driving productivity, you'll never allow the mind a moment to recover. And it's those moments of recovery that actually fuel the next phase of productivity. With that, we're also taking a new approach to the way we're looking at collaboration architecture. I'm going to talk about that a little today. MoCA, or the Modern Collaboration Architecture, created by my colleague from Down Under, Rishi, is an interesting and detailed way of really looking at what tool when. Now, if any of you out there have been following me for a while, you'll know that that's not always my favorite question. I am very much focused on business outcomes. What are we doing with the technology? Not the new shiny features, but it is important in the tactical work of driving adoption and also doing service deployment and service management that you really understand what tools your employees need. And then, of course, all of this is rests on top of our Microsoft 365 adoption framework that focuses specifically on how you drive adoption of Microsoft services. Many of you out there, some of you may have, you come from an IT background, or you may come from a change and training background or a solution development background. All of you need to be thinking about how do you get folks to actually get the most out of the services that we're working to deploy today. As we talk about this humans first strategy, it really comes in two parts. There are best practices that you can use at work to keep morale up and isolation down. Human connectivity is not an optional thing. We all need it. And I don't know about you, but many of us are experiencing what we call virtual meeting fatigue. It is a state, it's an actual state that can be measured in the brain. Satya also talked about this in his Ignite keynote, and it's something that I've known for a long time. If you stare at your screen for too long without fueling, resting, and hydrating your body, your effectiveness will plummet. And just because you're on a virtual meeting with people doesn't mean you feel like you're connected. And so it's very important, especially if you run a team, if you're a people manager, that you focus on this issue of making sure that people feel connected. And you can do that by really focusing on your team culture. Many of us aren't responsible for the entire culture of an organization, but each of us is responsible for the culture that we drive with our own behavior. So we can encourage employees in our own universe, our own little bubble, to really support that work-life balance. And I'm going to show you some examples here of some new meeting best practices that I think can help. Now, what we know for sure is that 82% of managers expect to have more flexible work balance, work from home policies as we continue to rebuild and recover from the pandemic. And as you may have heard, Microsoft made this announcement itself that it will support permanent work from home for folks who opt into that, or up to 50% of your time can be spent at home if you're not an essential worker. And that's something you can negotiate with your manager. And so you're going to see more and more companies follow suit because they've realized that it is possible. Yes, we can work together when we're apart. We can collaborate and stay organized. But there's still questions, right? There's still questions about how we do that. So we believe that Microsoft Teams can answer many of those questions when paired with all of the other important services that we offer from our company. Now, as I said, it's about your team culture, right? And so I wanted to share with you the example from my own team. As we moved through working from home and doing the work that we had to do as Microsoft to respond and scale our services to deal with the early months of the pandemic in March and April. It was about, I'll call it probably the beginning of May, when I personally hit a wall. I think it was of exhaustion. And it wasn't just physical exhaustion, it was mental exhaustion from the constant workload and the intensity. Now, I don't have a job like real first line workers do. That's not what I do. But our company did support governments and healthcare agencies and nonprofits, and that is the sector that I work in. So I was working in that space. But it's also the fact that no one is just dealing with what's happening at work. We're dealing with what the rest of our lives and how it has been disrupted. So I wanted to really take a pause and let my team know on a regular basis that this is the kind of culture we need to drive. It's open and welcoming, and we embrace more diversity than just what we look like. It's a diversity of thought and style. Not everyone is comfortable speaking out in a virtual meeting. Not everyone wants to turn their camera on. We need to embrace those things. We need to encourage openness and dialogue, but do it in a way that people who are introverts in this business are equally valued. We wanted to talk about, on my team in particular, we do have a bias for action. We do like to get things done. And what I was really trying to land with my team and we are doing as a culture in Microsoft is, it's all right to make a mistake. You can recover from that. Let's make decisions and move forward so that we can really help people, because that is the core goal of our team. But really, I wanted folks to know that we're in this together. Even though we're distributed literally all around the world, that my real focus was on their health and well-being, and we were going to be talking about that more as we went along. And of course, this was before the recent announcements and these things. So I was really happy to see us embrace these ideas as a company. But we took it a step forward. A culture without change in behavior does not change the lived experience of the people who are inside of that culture. You have to actually take action and change behavior. And we can't always change the behavior of others, but we can certainly change behavior of ourselves. And since I am a people manager and responsible for a team, we wanted to embrace things that were both coming from above, but that we also wanted to do on our own team. We have a standard policy, for instance, of no meeting Fridays. This gives people an opportunity to decompress, to catch up on work that requires longer times of primary focus without interruption. And it really encourages that time of mental recovery that is required for high-performing teams. We needed time to breathe in between meetings. And we found that trying to end meetings early didn't always work. And so we've standardized on starting our meetings either 5 minutes later if they're 30-minute meetings, or 10 minutes later if they are hour meetings. And we found that that really does help to create those breaks in the day to get some more water or let the dog out or balance those things we're all doing in our home workspaces. We converted many of our meetings to channel meetings inside of teams and opened them up to all of the folks who are members of that team. The people who were primarily assigned to that project obviously came to that stand-up, but we weren't closing the doors to other people who wanted to be more informed about all the various projects that were going on in our team. And then we scheduled staff meetings. We did them on alternate weeks rather than every week. And then during the staff meeting also, we have one or two key topics, but we also allow for time to just chat and connect. Something that I really came to understand in that moment of reckoning with my own personal productivity in May was a phrase that I keep going back to, which is that speed kills. And it kills creativity, it kills flexibility, it has a negative impact on your team culture when you are pushing to work so hard and so fast. It really has a detrimental impact on the quality of the work and the quality of the relationships. And so these staff meetings are not so much about downloading as much information as possible to my team, but instead really getting an opportunity to check in with people and see how they're doing and hear about what's going on with their kids. Are they in or out of school? And just really get an opportunity to build that social capital and connection with each other. And then lastly, one of my favorites here is what we call the OOF buddy. So one of the problems you have, especially during a time like this, trying to take time off work, is that you will come back to an avalanche of work. And so it really doesn't encourage work-life balance. It's very difficult for people to actually unplug, especially if you have Microsoft Teams on your phone. And so what we've done is have people select someone on the team as an OOF buddy, and that person covers your projects, covers your inbox if you like, via delegation, covers all of your meetings, so that when you come back, you're not dealing with this massive influx, nor are you simply deleting every message that came to you while you were out. It's also really great for me as a manager to support cross-training on my team. So these are just some of the practices that we've done to use the technology, but really this is on the human side, how we wanted to invest in the team. And I will tell you that I literally heard the team exhale when we announced no meeting Fridays. So, I just wanted to share those with you as some ideas for how to drive productivity by allowing your employees to rest, to have those moments of recovery. You can also use a new app that we have, and I want to show you this app. I'm definitely a fan of it, and it's called Reflect. And so let me hop over and show this app to you right now. So what you can do is an app template that is available in Teams right now. I'll show you where to download it in a moment. And it allows you to install it in the team and configure it to ask your team some questions and let them check in. They can do it anonymously. They can put in their name or not. And it's a great way to build these features into the team's experience. So this app has been installed, and you can see you can change the type of question that you're asking. You can decide on the type of privacy that you want. Will the names be displayed? When do you want this particular poll shared? And how often? You can make it repeating if you want. And then you can send it, and it will actually show up in the channel in Teams. And so this can be encouraging for people who happen to be more introverted, who may not want to simply talk about how they feel in some team meeting. I do encourage video on in those team meetings so we can see each other, but the Reflect app is available today. It does work in Teams and uses an Azure subscription, and you can get that today at ak.ms Reflect app. Now, the top of that article will say it's for Microsoft Teams Education, but it will work in a commercial tenant. And so, this is just one of the ways that are coming that we'll be building in these wellness motions within the product itself. Once you have your team in a place where they're feeling healthier, you've worked on the culture, and you've changed some of those best practices, you still need to have the right tools to get the job done. And you want to encourage the right intentions. I ran a campaign long ago when I worked in Microsoft IT, which is now called Core Service Engineering, and they're the folks who shared the slide with us, actually. I ran a campaign about saving content to get folks to save things in the right place from the beginning. And so those right intentions are things that you can use as themes for driving adoption. You want those intentions to power with the right behaviors and the right tool, and that's what's really going to deliver healthy teamwork. One thing without the other is great, but you need to really bring them together to capture the most benefit from healthy teamwork. And that is where the modern collaboration architecture comes in. Now, there's a detailed article and videos. We're doing a blog series on this that you can find on the Driving Adoption blog, and I'll show that to you. But overall, we are categorizing collaboration in these areas: individual, team, organization, and communities. Most people learn individually or with their team. They learn with each other, and they're learning less and less from formal training. Micro-learning is still an area that's coming up, but it's important to be thinking about how these applications fit into these areas of productivity. The individual productivity is about building skills, having experiences. What is the mindset you're developing, and what do you need to do every day to be able to manage your workload? Now, this looks different depending upon your role. As a service manager, I do different things than I do today as a leader of a larger group. When I was in the field and dealing with customers on a daily basis and pretty much living off my mobile device, that also was different. But at the end of the day, these are the things that I needed to do. And there are applications across the Microsoft 365 and Microsoft ecosystem that support each of these motions. Now, I realize we could all debate this. There's lots of great information out there, the periodic table and other articles about how you should think about Microsoft software and align it to motions. But when we think about it, this is how we look at it. This is definitely a deep dive workshop that we'll be delivering through our Worldwide Champions program. And as I mentioned, there is a lot of information that we're publishing via our blog on this topic. But Outlook is still the tool for individual productivity. It is definitely something that we are investing in. It's a very important part of the productivity workload and life cycle. So when people ask me quite often, is Teams going to replace or integrate Outlook? Our answer is no. That's not our intention, and it remains not our intention. We do definitely want to have people using Outlook to its best use. And that's why we realize that team productivity is handled differently. And Microsoft Teams comes into this world because it really brings people together who are trying to get something done. Team meetings, best practices, scheduling work dependencies, handling marketing, screen sharing. You can see the Teams icons here, but even sending and receiving instructions can be done in Outlook. And of course, there are other ways to do that using SharePoint as well. But it's important to understand the difference between the types of productivity. This is a group of individuals with interdependent activities that work together towards a common outcome. And that is really why Microsoft Teams, as the hub for teamwork, especially with its Better Together stories, is so powerful here. And of course, lastly, we have to think about communities. Communities are critical for people to learn from others that they may not know closely, but they can still learn from. Also, we have to think about knowledge management and events, much like this one. You can see how the ESPC team has embraced Microsoft Teams and our virtual event platform to continue to bring this community together. And so there are a variety of ways that that can be done. But Yammer is definitely the hero app of the community experience. And again, we'll see Yammer communities express themselves and be able to be pinned inside of Teams. But they're still two very different experiences. But I know you want to hear about Teams because you're all using it, but I wanted to lay that groundwork so that you can understand what we're thinking about. And I'll encourage you to go over to our adoption site to be able to see more information on the modern collaboration architecture as we continue to refine and evolve it. But remember, this is built in the middle between investing in employees and our M365 adoption framework, which really is the tactical plan for how you drive adoption in your organization, regardless of workload. Now, people are very interested in Microsoft Teams. There's a lot going on in this space. I mentioned the other day on LinkedIn that there was just this flood in LinkedIn and Twitter of all the announcements of new features. And my question is, I love the new features, but what are you doing with them? Features from Microsoft or any other software organization are only as important as the people who are using them and the outcomes they're driving with them. So while it can seem overwhelming, all of the new features we're bringing to the table, if they don't apply to you, I advise you to tune out the noise. Right now, more than ever, focus is needed so that you can drive forward and reimagine your businesses, respond to the impacts that you may be dealing with depending upon your region and industry, and continue to find that place where you can have meaningful work and a meaningful life at the same time. Meanwhile, however, we are releasing breakout rooms and new together mode scenes, these dynamic views that you'll be able to add in events and presentations just like this, more custom layouts, live reactions and polls and large meetings. And all of this is happening before the end of the year. So as I said, it's a very busy time in Microsoft Teams, and we are accelerating the features that we believe are going to have the greatest impact on the people who are using our product today. This is all about how we think about bringing people together, being productive as teams, small and large, and creating an environment from which you can do what we call those better together scenarios, teams and other work. For a very long time, I have been a business process architect. It is one of my favorite things to do. I like to build things. I like to fix processes. I like to make them more inclusive. And I do love technology, though not more than I love people. And if you've been in IT service management ever or done this sort of business process mapping, you'll be very familiar with this way of looking at measuring processes inside an organization. And they go from ad hoc over there at number one all the way to world class. Most folks will focus on getting their processes to level 3, proficient. The time and effort it takes to go beyond that has to be measured in terms of its return on investment. But many processes, when you start talking to people, are not even that. If you can't document it or you have to find Sally, that's not a business process, right? If it depends upon one human who understands everything, that's can be very detrimental to your business, even a very small business. Process mapping does not have to be a very large and expensive thing, though there are great people who do that work. It can simply be you and your whiteboard writing down, how does a customer register a concern? Where do they go? What happens to it? How does it get resolved? How do they know? Right? Those types of simple questions in the context of the situation we're dealing with right now may need to be revamped. And this is where Teams is also a platform for your apps. The announcements that we just made were really about Microsoft Teams and Power Platform and the investment that we're making into APIs, into new capabilities for developers to really leverage the power of Teams, like the app that I just showed you. Using message extensions and rich cards, things of that nature, and creating these snippets and code examples that will help you accelerate things. But I don't want you to think that you have to be a professional developer to do work in this space. I don't consider myself a professional developer, though I've certainly written some code and done some scripting. I consider myself in the realm of the low code, no code developer with occasional steps up into other areas. But I've been able to transform business processes by using custom apps and app templates and Power Apps, the additional templates in Power Automate, and other tools that we're really working on making accessible and simple for you to find. If you don't know what any of this is about, then I'm going to encourage you to join us over in the Power Platform community because there are lots of people just like you who are learning this space. Don't think because you've never written a line of code that you too can't deliver a Power App, for instance, because you can. And while nothing is ever as simple as some people would like to make it sound, if you're willing to follow examples, do some research on the web, maybe attend a few webinars, or just even take a 15-minute lesson on Microsoft Learn, you too will be able to do these things and begin to transform the space around you. I also want to call out the fact that this isn't just about large corporations. Small to medium-sized businesses can get some of the best return on investment by working on these types of automation. And efficiency right now is everything, both for maintaining and guarding against burnout of employees, but also for continuing to reimagine what the customer or product experience might be like in your particular company. If you need some inspiration for what these types of scenarios are that I'm talking about, I've got some right here for you. And of course, this is an evolution of a slide you've probably seen before. Used to talk just about Teams, but now we're talking about Teams and Power Platform. And now is the opportunity to take some of these examples and make them real for you. And you're going to continue to see us deliver those accelerators, those snippets and templates and tools and videos where you can learn quickly and easily as we continue to build that content on our new learning experiences. So I want to make sure that you're thinking about what you're going to do next. And I'm going to take this and now show you one of the main places that we've launched that you should be very, very familiar with, adoption.microsoft.com. But remember, invest in your people first, right? Your team, your teams, yourselves, right? Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. That is the most important thing. Joining a community so you can continue learning both here in this community, but in the Power Platform or Microsoft Tech community. We have so much free learning available. And then you're going to get inspired over at adoption.microsoft.com. So let me hop over there right now and show you a little bit about what my team has been doing to be very busy over the last few months. So right now I'm sitting in Microsoft Teams and I have one of our solutions lit up. I believe many of you have seen this before, but if you haven't, this is Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways. And this little app that I'm showing is an example of one of these templates that I'm talking about. It's available at ak.ms M365 Teams app, and I'll of course share that with you later. But it brings the power of Microsoft 365 Learning directly inside of Teams. But it does so much more than that. It gives you the ability to configure these pages any way that you want. So yes, I have pages for Teams training in OneDrive Basics, but I also have our community tenant news page in here. And that allows me to easily bring information from one of my main intranet sites right inside of Teams. We did announce at Ignite a new home app from the SharePoint team that will be made available as well, but this works today. Now, if I come on over here to the adoption site, this is adoption.microsoft.com. And it's really your central hub for learning, for adoption resources, training resources, and as a front door to all the communities that you will need. And so you can see here on our homepage that we have organized our adoption content right now by product. So we have content for Microsoft Teams and SharePoint, OneDrive, and Outlook. And what we've done is we've organized this content into phases: getting started, engaging your org, training your organization, and building champions. Lastly, we have content that's about securing your environment, because many people rapidly onboarded to Microsoft Teams, but they need to now go back and make sure that they're doing secure remote collaboration. That is very important. So you can pick any product and click through these resources that we've curated for you. And at the top of each page, you'll find the top two that we find important about whatever product you're looking at. Right now, my team is busy adding scenarios and industry guidance into this format and more. Now, when we come over here too, this is the article I told you about with regard to modern collaboration architecture. But I want to just go through some of these resources that are available here. So under resources, we have our adoption guides. You can even get over to the Azure Adoption Framework, demos and podcasts that you might see. We have a lot of topics here that are available to you. Accessibility, which is key, having inclusive content and experiences. You'd be surprised how many people don't really realize how to do document collaboration. Guides on that, MoCA, our virtual events, and then enabling remote work, which is a whole series on the remote work scenario. And then in our training area, of course, this is really important, our virtual hub, our champions program, and more. So I encourage you to visit adoption.microsoft.com and take a look at all these resources. They're free, much like our day in the life guides. I know some of you have seen these before, but we've now gathered them all in one place so that you can download them. We're working on localization of these as we speak. If you haven't seen these before, these are fantastic handouts, digital handouts that can be given to people so that they can understand the options that they have with Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Teams as they go through a day of a remote work, for instance. Now, if you're an IT professional out there or a developer, you're also going to want to visit our virtual hub. It's in our initial carousel, but you can also get to it right over here up in this corner. You'll be able to find it right here. Now, the virtual hub is important because if you go to Ignite, you're going to hear a tremendous amount of great content about our strategy in that moment in time. But there was a lot of content, about 300 sessions, that we weren't able to get into that from an engineering and deep dive technical training perspective. This is where you will find it. We have organized the content by various focus areas: adoption and governance, deployment and management, but also the developer platform, modern work, things of that nature. And if you go into one of the topic areas under the main segments, you will find content that is integrated from Ignite, from our Direct from Engineering deep dive technical training, as well as links to Microsoft Learn content, where we have these micro-learning segments and you can earn certifications. So this is a page about collaborative work management. We've got our core breakouts here that were very important from Ignite, and these additional sessions that we produced for you. So there's one that's really great: customized productivity apps with lists, libraries, Power Apps, and Power Automate. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You can watch this video, it's about 40 minutes long, and then you can go to the Lists Resource Center or the Lists Lookbook to get inspiration. So we've really tried to bring everything together in one place for you, because I know more than anybody that trying to find things across the Microsoft ecosystem is easier said than done. The important thing about the Virtual Hub is that it's evergreen. We're continuing to add content to it on a regular basis. And so, visit adoption.microsoft.com, come to the Virtual Hub and bookmark it, because we're also putting out what we call real world scenarios. We know that some of the most talented people in this ecosystem do not work at Microsoft. They are outside. They are you, the customer. They are MVPs and partners and what have you. And so they have submitted content. It goes through a little bit of an approval process, and then it comes here onto the Virtual Hub itself. My bandwidth is a little bit challenged, being that I'm streaming here, but these are actual scenarios of what people have really done. And I always found as a customer that that was some of the most important things. Of course, me at Microsoft, I can tell you how something works. But when you actually see things in action from real people who have built it and done it, it's just a whole different thing. It's very powerful. So I encourage you to come out and take a look at these real world scenarios that our MVPs have lovingly put together and our partners, and more will be added here over time. There's a ton of content that's available in the Virtual Hub. And the last thing that I want to show you about the adoption site is important, and it is our guidance for delivering virtual events just like this one. So many of us are trying to deliver virtual events, and virtual events can be anything from a team training to an executive town hall or to something like this. And we wanted you to have the Microsoft definitive guidance on how to accomplish that. And that's what this is. You can download the full playbook as a PDF. It's quite large, but we really wanted to break it down by role. So we've got content for organizers and producers, for IT professionals who need to configure the services to support live events or larger meetings, but also guidance for presenters and attendees, because doing virtual events is not like just having a meeting at your facility. It is quite different. And so these virtual event components are really the important guidance from Microsoft on these things. And we have an online community for you to come and bring your questions over on the Microsoft technical community. This information is for those base scenarios, and we'll be adding over the course of the next 6 weeks additional components for how you can do larger scale conferences and use advanced tools like OBS or NDI or some of these other things that allow you to do really fancy displays and things of that nature. So stay tuned in this space as my team continues to aggregate this information from across Microsoft and publish it for you. If you're wondering if I'm proud of adoption@microsoft.com, I absolutely am, because it's always been my dream to solve problems that I had when I was a Microsoft customer. And that is what I believe we are doing right now with this site. So if you have an idea, please make sure to come down here and use this little light bulb. This gives you the ability to report an issue or show your feedback directly to our user voice. And we do want to hear from you. Visit our adoptionfeedback.uservoice.com, vote up a good idea, tell us about more content that you need, or give us feedback on the site. And it is directly built into the experience here. So you know what to do next, and now you know where to find the information you need to do it. There are powerful online learning tools available at Microsoft Ignite, at our Virtual Hub, and then at Microsoft Learn that allows you to do micro-learning and certification. And all of these can be found at the URLs that I've shown below. And of course, as I mentioned, the virtual event playbook is available there, and access to our expanded Microsoft 365 Champions program. And that Champions program used to be just for Office. But what we've done is we've expanded it to better help people and the different types of areas that they want to learn about and that they have an affinity towards, and really to structure the learning. In January, we will be releasing learning paths for each of these areas that will build your technical acumen in whatever area you want to specialize in. Many people want to simply be champions of those Microsoft 365 apps, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Outlook. That's very important. The person who really knows how to make a PowerPoint sing is a very important person in your communications group, or even as a program or project manager, or a service manager in IT. And that is one of the fundamental areas of being a Microsoft 365 champion. But then you might want to move on to cloud productivity. And so then you will be learning about Teams and SharePoint and Stream, Forms and Power Automate and other things we may add in that track. And I often find that some people stay right there. But then for those of you who want to go further, or maybe the cloud productivity isn't as interesting to you, you really want to focus on business process improvement, right? Low code, no code solutions, power apps, and bots. This is an area of specialty as well. So we'll be expanding the Service Adoption Specialist course. We'll be moving into Microsoft Learn in January. Happy to announce that today. And adding Adoption Specialist as a role in the Learn environment, which is really a great thing stepping forward. Being a Service Adoption Specialist is a talent, a skill, and a career. And we at Microsoft are going to continue to invest in this because we know how important it is, no matter what your current role, for you to have some of these skills in actually driving usage of the services. We believe that those blue boxes live in between the green and the orange. We've added a track for security fundamentals. Now, so being a security expert is a very defined and complex area, but what we're referring to here are those basic identity and content protection procedures and features that are available that will help make all of the data in your environment more secure. And this is very important right now. We've seen a tremendous rise in online phishing attempts and other types of nefarious behavior out there. And so we all need to do our part to keep our information secure. That's why having a great Teams environment is so important, because if your collaboration experience is full of friction or over-governed, people will simply go around it. And when people go around the approved collaboration experience, that ultimately leads to data leakage. And that can be very dangerous today. So we want people to understand the basics of those security fundamentals if you're going to be a champion. And then, of course, understand the M365 adoption framework and the other adoption strategies and execution plans that you need to be successful. We'll be training all of this for free in my Worldwide Microsoft 365 Champions program through our monthly meetings, our blog posts, and the assets that we'll build out on Microsoft Learn. So we're going to continue to invest in this area. We know how important it is. And for me, I think that this also brings in folks who have very diverse backgrounds. You've probably heard me say it before. I don't have a degree in computer science. That is not my formal education. And so, and I think that actually makes me a better business solution architect because I'm more able to hear the needs of the customers that I serve. And frankly, as a champion, my superpower is listening. I see all of you right now, and I'm doing a lot of talking. But if you were my customer and I was coming to your organization, I'd be listening first so that I could really understand where you are before I ever talk about a feature or a product. And building that kind of skill, the empathy, the listening skills, the ability to design and document requirements and translate requirements into features and solutions is something that you build over time. I want to help others do what myself and many other people have done to do this kind of work, because it can be incredibly fulfilling and gives you a lot of flexibility in where and when you work. As you continue along this journey, the communities are here to provide answers, to provide support, and to get you to the assets that you need. So I really hope that you're with me out there in the Microsoft Tech community in my driving adoption space, but also there are forums for every major product in the modern workplace. Or join the Power Platform community. They have community forums dedicated to Power BI, Power Automate, Power Apps, and Power Virtual Agents. And I'm thrilled that Heather Newman, an MVP and a longtime veteran of the space, has joined Microsoft to lead this community strategy for the Power Platform team. So she and I are now partners in crime inside of Microsoft to continue to leverage and build communities that are really useful to their members and continue to help you build skills, without large financial investment. You really are investing your time. And of course, that is also capped off by what we're doing at Microsoft Learn, which will allow you to do these short segments of learning, 15 or 20 minutes, and over time, build up or do preparation for different types of certifications. So, we're here for you. I really want you, and now we can, leave my content and maybe I can come back and chat with you as we get ready to take some Q&A. But what I really want you to understand is that we're here for you as a company with assets, with capabilities, with tools. And it's very important that you know that you're not in this alone. You are with us in this process. And even though many of us will always talk about the new features of Teams or Power Platform or what have you, we really want to listen to what it is that you need during this time as you are reimagining and rethinking your business processes, the way you're engaging with customers, and things of that nature. We are going back also and working on things like fit and finish and polish in the various applications that we have, and building what I like to call more connective tissue, right, between Teams and Power Platform. For instance, the Power Apps, being able to author apps right inside of Teams, the way that Lists operates inside of Teams now and all the new capabilities that are there, the move from a planner to tasks in Teams and bringing in content from To-Do. So you'll see this over time in real ways where we will do things that will bring these things together to really power the hub for teamwork in a way that can be useful to you. So that was a lot of content in a short period of time. As I said, you are going to get my deck and all the various and sundry links that are in it. But the one that you should remember is adoption.microsoft.com. And exploring that site, we hope that it will lead you to being able to find more and more. And over the next few months in particular, you're going to see us build that out even more with these accelerators, these snippets, and these different types of templates and what have you that you can download and use in your own environment to create some of these solutions that we're talking about and that I showed on that particular slide. So, now is a good time to be in this space. It may be a stressful time depending on where you are in the world in general, but together we can absolutely do this work and make sure that we are helping our employees make sure that they are investing in themselves and that you are too. Now, what we're going to do, I'm going to put my glasses on so I can see. We're going to go over to the Q&A, and I'm going to see what questions you have been asking. So let me come over and take a look at that. Sharka, do you have a question that folks have voted up that you can tell me?
Yes. So the most voted one is some really cool ideas and practices here. Did all team members embrace the practices immediately, or did people need time to adjust? And if so, how did you manage this transition/change?
That is an excellent question. So we were very lucky because all of Teams engineering were embracing the no meeting Fridays at the same time. And actually what happened really was we knew there was going to be a no meeting day. We didn't know what day it was going to be on my team. So we went ahead and said, okay, we're going to have no meeting Fridays. And if the organization as a whole picks another day, we'll move ours. So overall, there are many people, I want to say 2,000, 2,500 people in Teams engineering at this point around the world. And so I'm referring to the folks who are working in the United States. In different regions, people implemented these programs differently. And so there's definitely a cultural aspect. And no, we didn't all do it at the same time. Now, on my team, everybody did. And Sharga, you can add some color to this. Everybody was really happy for no meeting Fridays. They were absolutely happy for not for having those breaks in between meetings. I think that one was really popular. The channel meetings have come and gone depending upon the project. I think that that's a little hard to manage sometimes. So that one I'll call it 50% effective. The folks who embraced it love it, but not everybody for their project meeting has moved it to a channel for one reason or another. And the OOF Buddies has been very, very successful. And that did phase in over time. Another reason I want to say that we did the OOF Buddies is to also build more recognition on the team of what each other does. And make sure that people really got to know each other more in terms of the way that they worked and the partners that they had. So it was a little bit phased, but we picked a day, and after that date, all the meeting schedules changed, and there were no more meetings on Friday, and that we did all at once. Great, excellent question. What is next there? I am not...
The next one is, what do you think is a good way to bring all those new features of Office 365 services to the end user, as we have the evergreen approach and not major changes as in the past, like at 2010, 2013, 16. The question is related to training and adoption.
Yes, absolutely. It's also related to service management. So there's a couple pivots to this. From an IT perspective, you have, I'm going to say, a little bit of limited capability to turn features off. You can do it, obviously, with PowerShell, but depending on how granular the feature is, we may or may not have controls in the tool. I always advise my adoption specialists to pick themes. Gather a theme. This week, it's about meeting best practices, using the whiteboard, having meeting notes, putting in an agenda. Next month, it may be about document collaboration, and you use our handout and you circulate it with people. But you have to theme these things together, because right now, especially, people's minds are taxed, which makes it very difficult for them to retain information. Using Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways and promoting an individual playlist, for instance. But I believe it's our job to aggregate the new features in a way that is meaningful by role, by business unit, and sometimes even by time of year. Like, for instance, it's during closing times, at the quarter, that we usually publish the collection of new features in Excel, because we know everybody's working in Excel during that time, updating their budgets and submitting budget documents. So wouldn't it be great if everybody really knew how to do pivot tables? Wouldn't it be awesome if they stored all of those Excel files in the team instead of emailing them around? So definitely aggregating features by theme is a very successful way to do that. And I'll actually be talking about that on October 21st in our Worldwide Champions call. That happens to be the topic. How to tactically aggregate features and use theming. And I'll have some more examples of that. Excellent question. What's next?
And the last one we have is, how is the name of the app in Teams just shown a few moments ago? I don't know, what was it? It was before the slide of M365.
Yes, it was the Get Started app. I believe that's what you're referring to. Please tell us in the Q&A if it is. And the Get Started app is an app template, and I can name it any way I want. When you download the template, it's actually there. There's a link to it on that M365 page on the adoption site. The default name of it is Get Started, because that's what I like to call the training experience. So I like to have it up high on the left rail for everyone to see, but you can scope it and have different apps for different types of roles, things of that nature. But if Get Started wouldn't make any sense in your company, you could call it the Contoso intranet. You could really call it anything you want. And you can also change the icon. I happen to use, of course, Microsoft logo because it's easy to see and all that stuff. But certainly you can make that change and configure it any way you want, which is why I like the app template and the way that works. All right, I think that I am done. I really very much appreciate, again, all of your time, and more than anything, I really appreciate your focus. Focus is something precious. I have come to really appreciate it over these many months working here by myself in my house. You know, as I said, you'll have access to all of my slides and all of the content that I've shared today. Please make sure you thank your event organizers, and I want to thank them for all the work they've done to put on this virtual event. And of course, always including me. I love to be included here. This is one of my favorite events, and the team has done a great job. So I appreciate them. Show them some grace and kindness as you do make sure to fill out those evaluations and share all the information. So I think with that, that we are done. Please have a wonderful day. Take in all of the rest of the content, and any questions that I didn't get to, I'll answer in the Ask Microsoft Anything later today and via chat. So if you think of a new question, just tag me in the team and I'll answer. Thank you so much.